Every situation is unique. For better or worse, I've accumulated some experience dealing with strange situations like this one. Going on like this will only lead to us running in circles. Whee! It's so strange that you can wiggle. I need to find the right words, something a girl in her position can relate to. Now's the time to choose. Oh, we get to pick stuff! Be straightforward. What else are you hiding? Beat around the bush. I think there might be something else. Bluff. Actually, the truth is... Intimidate. Lying is not a good habit, you know. I don't really think that this is intimidating. I guess it is a bit intimidating. I think that the straightforward one would be more intimidating. Personally. This one might think there might be something else. Probably would have the best, like, result with her, with Cecile, I think. Just based on her personality. What we know. He's pretty straightforward, I think, from what we've understood of him so far. It's not very, like, sugarcoating. Let's do this one. I deliberately avoid her eyes, put down my pen, and take a deep breath. But there's more to it than that, isn't there? The girl's eyes widen as I call her out. Looking for information because you had some strange dreams? A nice idea, but only someone who went through the trouble of making up a story would explain it like that. But I didn't. Humans rely on subjective motivation. If a thing has no value, no one will grant it much attention, let alone devote so much effort into studying it. I can tell you're a smart girl, but believe me, interest is a bad excuse. You can stick with that approach, but it's not gonna work. I approach Cecile and look into her eyes. There's a lot of history hidden away here. Fate brought you to Hermitage. It's a special place. I hope you understand that. Cecile seems to be holding her breath. The girl holds tightly onto the book, her fingers caressing the corners. It's a sign of how many thoughts that are going through her head right now. Time feels as if it's moving slower. I don't know how long we were standing there, but after a while, Cecile's eyes finally drift away from mine. Sir, you really aren't an ordinary person. Thanks? Won't shy away from a compliment if I get one, that's for sure. Cecile ignores my playful remark. She carefully places the book back on the shelf, then turns to me with a serious expression on her face. It wasn't in my original plan, but sooner or later I probably would have come here to ask for your advice anyways. I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble. I'm really embarrassed. Seems like you really don't know anything. All I can do is scratch my head. Playing dumb doesn't seem to be working very well. I want to believe that there are still people willing to help others out there, so it's nice to see that they still exist. You're an interesting person, surrounded by so much knowledge from all kinds of different sources. Most people would never believe me if I told them what I told you. I can take a rough guess at your situation. You can tell me your story. I'd like to hear the truth. The corners of Cecile's mouth turn up slightly upwards into a bitter smile. It's a harsh truth, though. I really didn't lie. Those images are still in my head. But it's just like you said. There are other reasons why I'm paying such close attention to them. Cecile's tone of voice changed as she looks at me, but her eyes aren't focusing on me. The spider noise is gonna scare me every single time. I saw my best friend in my dreams. She's like a sister to me. Huh? She was lying on the ground, twitching. Her face was pale as snow. The ground beneath her head was covered in red. Blood was still pouring out of her. My goodness. There's more. I couldn't see her eyes. Her right hand was completely mauled. She was trying to move. There was blood. So much blood. And the girl is getting more and more immersed in her vivid memories. She stares at me with blank eyes. I can see a figure reflected in her eyes, but it's not me. Cecile covers her face with one hand. She looks panicked. She uses the other to point on the ground, as if something were lying there. She kept trying to lift her head, but her neck was twisted too badly. She didn't react at all. I held her hand. Cecile enters in a kind of trance as she becomes fully immersed in the memory. Her facial expression changes to one of utmost dread, and her mouth starts moving strangely on its own. Words spill out of her mouth. She can't control it. She's staring. The stare. The eyes. Wait, eyes? Didn't she say she couldn't see them at first? Blood, her neck, those eyes. The eyes. Eyes. Looking at me, they're looking at me, staring at me, looking at me, gazing at me, those eyes. I clap my hands loudly in front of her face. Ah! She sits there with her arms wrapped around herself, shaking, frightened. What should I do? I gently put my hand on her shoulder. Calm down. Calm down. So, basically, this vision made you worry. Worry about your friend's well-being. Cecile nods. I can't bear the thought of her like that. It's so horrible. I'm really scared. The more I remember, the more Cecile leans against the edge of the bookshelf. Her arms are around her knees. So you decided to look for information on visions and hallucinations. You're trying to gain further knowledge about them. Trying to figure out how much of what you're experiencing is connected to reality. No response this time, but the answer is clear. This is starting to get troublesome. Will you help me? Cecile looks up, a worried expression on her face. Her eyes are slightly red and swollen from holding back her tears. She looks so troubled. I can't leave her alone with this burden. So your interest was in fact genuine. That book, I thought maybe Okay, take it easy. I won't leave you on your own. However, if you really want me to help you, I need more information, some more details to work with. Who exactly is his friend who's like a sister to you? What's your relationship with her? Can you pinpoint where and when the vision takes place? More importantly, what exactly are these hallucinations? I know the situation is serious, but I still need to grasp the basic concept of it all, or I won't be able to help you. You're right. I'll tell you. Actually, I often get bullied at school. I don't have any friends there, and they often pick on me in groups. They all think I don't deserve to be going to the same school as them. They want to force me to leave. They don't talk to me, they steal my books, or pour water in my desk drawer. They always try to make me angry or trip me whenever I walk by. The only person who ever stood up for me and told him to stop was her. Her name is Eloise. She's the president of the school's art club. Without her, I probably would have given up already. When did you two meet? Around the middle of September this year. Interesting. From what you've told me so far, I would have thought you'd known each other for years. I wish that were the case, but I only transferred to Phoenix High School this semester. I had high hopes that the people there would be nicer, that there'd be a sense of community, but it's even worse than it was before. She sighs and looks as if she's holding back a frustrated laugh. It sounds tough. Is this art club somehow related to what you've been dreaming of? The floor in my vision is very much like the one in the club building, and Eloise often gets into arguments with others because of me. Are there many conflicts within the art club? The situation between her and the others is very tense, even though she's a student representative. Don't the teachers have anything to say about all that? I mean, things like that could reflect negatively on them, too. Truth be told, the teachers are more worried about the art competition. The preparations for that have their full attention. The what now? It's an art competition called the Yukai Cup. It's prestigious and level of talent is very high. It's serious business. I don't really know too much about these kinds of things. What can you win? Prize money? No, nothing like that. Honestly, for me it's not even that big of a deal. But I've only been around for a few months. Many of the others multiple years. That's not a full sentence. Their pride is on the line when it comes to facing off against students from other schools. So it's about honor. Every February, the Yukai Cup is the only thing anyone talks about at Phoenix High. We always score well in the competition. Sounds very persistent, if you ask me. They work so hard to prepare it that they're all stressed out. The atmosphere becomes unbearable, and the art club turns into an emotional powder keg. So it's a regular occurrence. Just like me, Eloise doesn't have much of a presence outside the art club. Considering her calm personality, it's hard to imagine her taking the initiative and start a fight with anyone else. That makes your visions even more strange. There's no plausible explanation for them. I would just like to write them off as simple nightmares. I really would. But I'm convinced that there's more to it. Yes, I understand that now. It really makes me wonder. Like I said before, I see a lot of things in these dreams. Although I don't think see is the right word to describe it. I can see, hear, and touch everything. It's as if I don't even exist and I'm actually part of it all. That doesn't really add up to what you said before. Could you explain it again? How do you mean that? I'm not very good at explaining it. Don't worry. Just tell me about how you felt when it first happened. What was the first thing that went through your mind? Seal thinks it over and opens her mouth to say something, but then shuts it again. She stays silent for almost a whole minute. Well, I think I was flying. Flying. So it feels as if you're flying through the air. No, it feels like flying, but I don't have any sense of self. I can observe everything from above. My perspective certainly isn't from heaven. The only reason I say it that way is so I can describe it somehow. Last time, I saw the city's famous riverside viewing platform. A group of panicked people come running from the north, right towards the people on the viewing platform. Luckily, security guards were nearby to handle the situation and prevent a mass panic. The people were shaken up and looked like they'd seen a ghost. They looked really frightened. All the same, they were in such a small group that they were lost in a gigantic crowd of people. Hardly anyone noticed the uproar on the other side of the viewing platform, and everyone simply carried on as usual. It's really scary how you can feel isolated and unsafe, even when you're out in public and surrounded by so many people. Afterwards, I went to take a look at the place on my own. The surrounding streets and buildings were all familiar to me. They were just like in the dream. Even the street signs were the same. It's hard to imagine that without having seen it for yourself. I've seen bizarre scenarios play out in my mind before, Until the visions of my friend, I never thought about actively researching what I'd seen. I often lose track of time when I have these visions. I have no sense of self. No Cecile. Just one big blur of everything. Cecile describes the situation as if it were a good thing. I'm surprised she isn't smiling, what with how happy she sounds. However, as soon as my focus shifts, I quickly lose that state of mind. The same as with a real dream? By the time I start to question whether or not I am myself, I'm already in a more conscious state, and it's only a matter of time before I return to reality. Well, at least you return to your senses at some point. A dream that can even put that fact in question is more than bizarre. Even if I wanted help from someone, I'd have a hard time explaining it to them. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. I'm very grateful. She bows her head and already sounds less tense. Talking is really important. I've never been very sociable. Too awkward, I guess. But I see where you're coming from. Anyway, I just want to understand what I see. After all, if my friend is really in danger, I need to find a way to help her. Do you think I'm naive for wanting to find out whether my dreams are real or not? Of course not. In fact, you being so calm right now is remarkable. Let's take a small break. Do you want another cup of coffee? Cecile leaves Hermitage before the sun goes down. The hand she was holding the hot coffee with was iced cold, which I find difficult to comprehend. After Cecile's departure, the bookstore falls back into its usual silence. Only the books that are askew on the shelf show any indication that something happened here. Though, to be honest, it's probably more organized than before. Still, there's a lot of work to be done. I should analyze the information I have so far. It completely depends on how much Cecile is willing to tell me. We agreed to discuss it further tomorrow. But if she chooses to give up, there's nothing more I can do. Instead of worrying about that right now, I should focus my mind on the matter at hand. Stay calm and collected and take plenty of notes. That's what experience has taught me over the years. Even strange events that cannot be explained through common sense often follow some kind of logic. As long as there is sufficient information, I can draw conclusions. As more conclusions are drawn, an analysis of the events can be constructed. It's something that I like to call the principle of reasoning. The things I see look so real, I can nearly reach out and touch them. Normally, my imagination isn't as vivid. That's why I started memorizing the things I saw. How else would I ever be able to prove they're real events? Presumed reasoning. I write down a question. Realistic dreams? Although her idea sounds somewhat naive, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. The problem is how to prove it. Even if Cecile finds matches between the dream and reality, there's no actual solid proof. People often get a sense of déjà vu, and this experience, and is the sense of being present, has its own plausible explanation in science. In times of emotional instability, the frequency of déjà vu experiences is increased. That might not be all, and it's too simple an explanation, but when under stress, it's easy for the brain to mess up one of its delicate processes. The viewing platform Cecile mentioned is a pretty well-known sightseeing spot, so even if the architecture there gives her a sense of familiarity because of her vision, that's still no real verification. Past memories can often interfere subconsciously with the conclusion. She might have seen the place somewhere before. To answer this question, I can't rely solely on Cecile's one-sided information. The assumption that she didn't have any relevant knowledge beforehand can only be confirmed by a third party. I should take notes on what else she said she saw. The ancient battlefield. Gatherings at the square. These scenes are bizarre enough, and there seems to be no explanation for them. That big fire she mentioned worries me as well. Considering the difficulty of the investigation, I only have a limited number of options left. There's things happening at Phoenix High School, riots at the Riverside viewing platform. That's all the information I can confirm so far. It's puzzling either way, but at least I can try. There are more down-to-earth approaches to understanding what's happening in this city. If possible, I want to avoid involving any innocent bystanders. When I was conducting research on folklore in the remote countryside, I heard a lot about supernatural dreams. There's a world of difference between an innocent high school student and witches. It's obvious that Cecile has already convinced herself of an answer to all of this, but is trying to actually prove it is something more difficult altogether. The sky outside has already turned completely dark, and I didn't even notice. The lighting inside Hermitage isn't optimal, but it's better than nothing. I turn off the dim lights on the ground floor, which hold more symbolic than actual value, lock the shop door, and make my way to the apartment.